New tonight, an attorney for Hannah Kobayashi's family confirms they received what may have been a big clue weeks ago. A photo of Hannah with an Argentinian man appearing as if they had gotten married.
There was a purported wedding, like a Hawaiian beach wedding photo, and this information that was sent to Sydney, Hannah's sister, on November 15.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Two aspects above all sent investigators and many of us on social media hunting down the foul play track in this case. The first was Hannah caught on CCTV in the company of an unknown stranger, and that footage has not been released, obviously to protect the identity of that stranger. Her family said at the time they had no idea who he was. Remember headlines like this: Hannah Kobayashi may have been taken by a stranger. And since that was the last information we had about her up until that got superseded with the entry into Mexico, it did make sense to think, well, this stranger was one of the last people to see her. Had he stolen from her? Was he coercing her in some way? Was he up to no good? And what's the answer to that? Anyway, the second and more compelling aspect was a text Hannah sent in which she said she was scared. Was she scared of this stranger? Many of us thought that they were connected. Today, 20-something days later, one can't help wondering, what is that all about? Well, now that the unknown stranger's story has been disclosed, more and more pieces of the puzzle are coming together. Every passing day, we are getting to know the answer to who is Hannah. We get coming closer to putting that picture together. And as you're about to see, Hannah's story isn't nearly as clear-cut, obvious or black and white as many of us thought in the beginning. And this is a mistake we often seem to make in true crime. We make simple assumptions based on ignorance, and we're quite often quite confident in those assumptions only to be completely wrong, as many of us were in this case. People in true crime, be careful when holding the true crime hammer. Be careful about trying to make every nail into a crime, every unknown person into a perpetrator, every situation into some nefarious plot. Not only in hypotheticals like these, but also in your own life.
Police have said she walked across the border on her own.
That's not necessarily voluntary. Just because some man is not dragging her by her hair, that doesn't make it voluntary.
Honestly, Ms. Azaria, it could be. Before we get to that, and the number 4 clue we all missed, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. By the way, I will be uploading a video, a long-awaited video on this shooter in Manhattan, where I'll be giving my spiel on the whole case. So if you're interested in that, watch this space for details. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. So, according to an article in People, Hannah Kobayashi spent the night in Los Angeles with a stranger that she happened to meet near the airport. That is what young people do. That is what Jay Slater did. The two formed a quick bond after crossing paths and then spent about 9 hours together, walking through downtown LA and meandering their way to Union Station, where they fell asleep. In the morning, Kobayashi, the 30-year-old photographer and smoke shop employee, was gone. The unknown stranger, I take it, was still there, still sleeping. It's interesting that Hannah had a job as a smoke shop employee. That's a lot less cool and glamorous sounding than a photographer or DJ, certainly in my opinion. What do you think? I mean, smoke shop employee. It seems to me to be a small, invisible existence for a 30-year-old, and likely Hannah wanted to live larger. Don't you get that impression from her Instagram as well? Someone who wants to live life to the full. Well, can you, as a smoke shop employee? Going back to the article, a key discovery, police say, was in finding the truth about reports Kobayashi had been seen with an unknown person who could have put her in danger. And actually, we do find so much more based on this first-hand encounter with this quote-unquote stranger. Lieutenant Doug Oldfield told people, quote, "It's already in the news that she's with this male who's scary and she's in big trouble." That was kind of the narrative that was out there. Well, was it true? And you remember the text? "I think someone's trying to steal my identity. I'm really scared." And was this someone, the stranger? Well, the answer appears to be no, and I'm going to give you some information that tends to support that. But if the answer is no, then who else could she have been afraid of? One wonders if she had become afraid of her ex. Did he threaten her? Did he threaten to turn her in? But as it turned out, this text was completely unrelated to the stranger, who turned out to be a random stranger. I remember speculating that she might have met someone in the bookstore while charging her phone, but it turns out she met someone at LAX's train stop while asking directions. I mean, that is a perfectly plausible scenario. And then the two hung out together for the rest of the night. You know, I've traveled before. Sometimes that whole transit process can be long and lonely, and so good for her that she met someone and had kind of a nice experience, sort of bridging that time. Back to the article, as officials learned more, their view of the man's relationship to Kobayashi changed. We have this gentleman, we have them walking on video. We're looking, hey, does this person seem like she's in distress? What does she look like? We see a lot of smiling, Oldfield says. We see smiling from the guy as well. Now, in true crime, I've often heard people dismiss the importance of affect. You know, if you know how to interpret it, it can often be the most important evidence or sign taking you in a particular direction. It's so useful, so important in true crime, but it's also so important in real life. Can you notice that someone around you is having an off day, that they're holding something back, that there's something on their heart or on their mind? Are you able to see that, or do you just completely miss it? And are other people able to see that about you? And that does seem to be the case here. Back to the article, there's another video where she passes by two police officers and has a chance maybe to say, help, help, if there's anything wrong. The lieutenant continues. So from there, we're able to get a better idea of who this guy was, and we identified him. The man whom police are not naming spoke with them twice, offering his side of the story. And can you see how things can look extremely clear given just the basic fabric, the basic circumstances, and yet it can turn out to be completely different when you add that other piece to the story. And that is the case here. He and Kobayashi met at LAX's train stop and struck up a conversation around 9 p.m. local time on November 11th as she was leaving the airport. We haven't spoken to her, but from what we gather is that she was looking to understand how to get to Union Station and that he was going to assist her in getting her there. That's according to Oldfield. Now, perhaps the most useful insight we get from all this is Hannah's state of mind. Was she suffering from a mental break? Was she overly anxious? Did she tell the stranger that she was afraid? Well, what do you think? According to the article, for the amount of time they spent together, he pretty much was an ear to listen. Franco, the detective, says. She just spoke and talked about her life in Maui, her personal life, her love life, and so forth. And he just listened to her. And so what does this tell you? She clearly wasn't anxious. She wasn't suspicious. She wasn't distressed. She wasn't tired. She didn't even seem to be unhappy. She was sensible, if perhaps a little emotional, as well as, ironically, reaching out while apparently letting go. Back to the article, the man described Kobayashi as a free spirit. Now, if you ask me, that seems to be an accurate assessment. It's not like he totally misread her. It does seem like he met her, they connected on a certain level, he liked her, but also that he got her. And he also said that she seemed coherent and normal. She didn't seem scared. She said she wanted to go and see the redwoods and also mentioned plans to be in New York. And so that raises the question, was she having a mental break? Look at these words from him. She seemed coherent. She seemed normal. She didn't seem scared. She was asking for directions, right? And so just at face value, she's not having a mental break with this guy. She's just having a completely normal experience, and one that he, I guess, found quite charming. Anyway, going back to the article, once at Union Station, Kobayashi and the man spent several more hours together and ate dinner as well. They went to sleep in a waiting area, as travelers sometimes do. I've done that. I actually met a traveler once on a ferry from Scotland to Ireland. I still remember we fell asleep holding hands. And then Kobayashi got up by herself, gathered her luggage, and walked off on her own. And that brings us to the number 4 clue we all missed, and it's this. Her phone, for whatever reason, was left behind at LAX. Why? What do you think it means? I have to say, I'm not certain about this. This could be Hannah making sure that she got a clean break. It could also be that Hannah saw her phone as something that ensnared her in something, including in the cultural apparatus that we are in, and she wanted to get rid of it. Perhaps knowing that the marriage fraud is a crime, she didn't want the breadcrumbs to lead back to her. I'm not sure if I actually believe that, though. Or perhaps she simply lost it. If Hannah did leave her phone behind intentionally, do you agree? It seems to indicate she's serious about not coming back, as well as serious about disconnecting. Very serious about that. It could also explain how so many days later she could legitimately simply not know what happened to her father. I'm not going to take it further than that. Look out for my coverage of this Manhattan suspect that's still on the run. I think we're on day 5 of the manhunt. Look out for that. Meanwhile, enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you guys next time.